Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show for 12 p.m. GMT every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make money by leveraging the internet and the latest technologies. I'm your host, Bchek. If you don't know me, I'm a former teacher and commercial lawyer in the UK. Now I collect NFTs, I trade NFTs, and I lend against them too. I'm the author of The Snapshot, which is pinned up top. It goes out daily on Twitter and one time per week in newsletter form. Today is my newsletter day. It's just gone out. A bunch of people subscribed just before because of the tweet. I reminded people in the morning that I did really well in the NFT market about 100 weeks ago, and I've been writing ever since. So if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, the OG NFT collector, the airdrop extraordinaire. Had such a good conversation with him yesterday over lunch, talking about all the wild opportunities that are on the table at the moment in the NFT market and just more generally. And we're going to get into all of that in just a little bit. But just as a reminder, friends, nothing that any of us say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing this Friday, the 24th of November?
GM, doing absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed meeting you yesterday in London. It did go out in the evening. Might be a bit of a reflection why the title of the show is called All Caps Lock NFT Market Craze! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. You messaged me in our private chat on StreamYard before the show while the music was playing, saying, "Man, you have to change the title."
It's
LOL.
got to go.
But I quite like it. We'll change it when we get into the first news. But for now, I enjoy the all caps lock title.
It's got to go, man. It's got to go. This is a hungover, or actually maybe still drunk title. This is a drunk title.
Look, Hangover Me thinks we talk about Blur price going up. We talk about NFTs in terms of the Luxra Infiltrator collection. And we talk about Hanwei dominating the NFT lending market. So all news are NFT. They are all crazy. It's all about the market. Hence, NFT market craze is the perfect symbiosis for the title.
You sound drunk to me, to be honest. This sounds like pure alcohol. These words are just alcohol slipping, sliding out of your mouth. But we're going to hear about all of those words. Going to be very loose with some of our thoughts and opinions today. I don't know. I woke up feeling quite good as well. I don't think specific. Well, the coins are up a little bit, which is always helpful for the mood. I don't know. Maybe it was just a good conversation yesterday. Seems like there's a lot of opportunity. Feels like the market is pretty buoyant and pretty excited. So I definitely feel some of that, and therefore we can have that title. We can have that title, and we're going to get into all of that news in just a moment. Any other thoughts, Legendary, before we get into the show, get into the headlines in just a moment from our conversation yesterday?
Absolutely. You said the coins are up a bit. We talked about a coin specifically yesterday. You mentioned it. Grok being up 34% on the day. We talked about it in the context of me upgrading my subscription from X Premium to X Premium Plus, on the notion that Elon posted that from next week on, all X Premium Plus subscribers will have access to Grok AI. And your line of reason or your line of thought was to say, if this is the case, then so many creators might tweet about Grok over the coming days and weeks. And we both yesterday agreed that Grok would be a good buy based on that speculation. We both didn't buy Grok, and you very correctly pointed out we would have been up 34% if we listened to our own speculation and thesis.
Yeah, just to be clear, like that's pretty accurate as to what happened yesterday. However, it's something that I had thought about because you talking about the upgrade potential of X and how Grok is going to get integrated. I was already aware of that. Like I knew that was going to happen. It's just you saying it reminded me. Because when I had first heard about it, I thought, okay, that means Grok is a buy. It means Grok is a buy. Then you reminded me, and then I still thought Grok was a buy. And then basically the first time I thought it, I didn't do anything. The second time I thought it, well, you reminded me, still didn't do anything quick enough. And now it's up 30%. So this is ultimately how some of these things go. And it just shows, like, my reflection on it is that, look, you can't do it with all, because to be honest, I'm having so many of these thoughts on so many of these things. And I literally don't have access to the computer at all of the times at the moment. So you can't do what you want immediately. Like yesterday, I was transferring, where was the money? The money was in, where was the money? The money was in Kraken or something. And I was just, you know how it takes a little bit longer to receive the funds from Kraken, and you're trying to do something and make a trade. I was bridging it over to Solana, and it was just taking too long. And in that period of time, like, the price was just going up. The fact I had to wait like 30 minutes, it had gone up to a point where I was like, I don't even want it anymore. Which typically is not my thing, because I'm not trading the hourly or the 24-hour either. So it's not necessarily a problem, but it's just a reflection that I've got to be conscious at the moment that things, things can get a bit wild, and you can feel like you're chasing things. And just to take a step back and be like, do you know what? Can't hit all of them. You can't get them all at the exact perfect price. And one of my other reflections, key reflections for me, because you responded kind of surprised as to one of my buys at a particular price, and it has already gone up like a certain amount. And then I saw this tweet which justified what I was saying. And it was just like, I don't know. And again, this is just like my inkling. This is kind of my second potential bull market. I don't know if the price even matters right now. Like, this is just what I'm feeling. If we are, and this is the big leap of faith, this is the big leap of faith in terms of your thinking, and this is the thing you really need to come to your own conclusion on. Like, if we are in a bull market, we're going to go into one in the next few months, the next year or so, like, that price of that altcoin, so long as it's not like a complete piece of rubbish which someone is going to rug, like, it's just going to go up. It's been in what's it called? It's been like in an accumulation mode for a year to 2 years. Okay, cool. It's up 10% on the day. It's up 20% on the day. Cool. It's up 30% on the day. Oh, it's up 100% in the last week. Okay. Doesn't really matter. Like, because the upside from that perspective is still enormous, because it's gone so low. And I think that was backed up with one of the tweets I saw earlier, which was just like, okay, are you really going to sell your alts after they've just moved out of the accumulation range that they've been accumulating in for 2 years? So that was just one of my thoughts. I don't know anything for sure. It could obviously be a risky play. Alts are obviously way more volatile than other things, but I don't know. Depends if you're betting on it being a bull or not. Like, if you just want to go in and out for the trades quickly, that's also fine. But if you're taking a more kind of zoomed out perspective and thinking about the total market cap that could be achieved in the altcoin market and the other market, it's just like, we've just really started moving. Thoughts?
Very much agree with what you said. And NFT Stats, good friend of the show, had a post on that today, saying that when Peter Thiel spoke in Hong Kong a few years ago, someone asked him what the biggest opportunity was that he ever missed. He said Facebook Series A. He had invested in the angel round at 5 mil valuation and couldn't handle the idea of putting more in at 100 mil valuation. We sometimes anchor to where we first heard about something instead of the opportunity at hand. Thought it was an interesting response, and kind of resonates very well with what you just said. You see Blur at 40 cents ripping after the airdrop. You think, shit, it's already up from the airdrop. You're too late to buy, and then it goes up another 38%, and it's at 50 cents, and it goes up again. If you have a conviction or a hypothesis that is strong and that you believe in, you shouldn't base that buying decision necessarily on the previous price action if your hypothesis is stronger than a pump of 20, 30, 40, whatever, however many percent.
Yeah, exactly. It's not relevant. Like, the current price is basically not relevant. It may become relevant again when you're in a different type of, when you're in a different moment, But as far as I can tell, well, depending on what you're thinking, I'm clearly exposing myself. Like, my thinking now is that we're in the starts of the bull, and I think, well, we've been saying it for weeks, like, time to get locked in, time to get locked in, time to get locked in, like saying it over and over again for at least a month now. And things have been ripping for a month, left, right, and center. So, yeah, it depends what your stance is. I'm gonna be a bull because I think observing what other people say and think as well, who are smarter than me and who are better traders than me. It's like the bulls are the people who are going to make money. Bulls make money because ultimately stuff goes up. You don't want to be unallocated to the thing that you log into every single day, hoping that the price goes up. So that's some of my thinking, not financial advice as always. But I thought, yeah, worth bringing that conversation up. I'm glad you brought up the NFT stats comparison, because I think, yeah, that's in the same universe as what I'm kind of talking about. Any final thoughts, Legendary? Otherwise, let's get into the headlines.
Let's do that. Let's get into the news.
Excellent. So, as always, the headlines and price action is in the snapshot, which is pinned up top. Please do like it if it brings you some value today. It takes me a lot of time to do every morning, so I appreciate all of the support. Let's get into it, starting with the price action. We have crypto actually flat at the moment. Bitcoin's at 37.6. ETH, I think, is up from where I've said it is now. It's at 2.1 up a percent. Solana is at 58.2. Ape is at 1.5. NFT volume had a big day yesterday, actually. It was at 21.4 million. Blur is at 16.5. OpenSea at 3.3. Getting into the headlines, we have Blur ripping 30% to about 60 cents. Got all different angles to look at there: who's buying, who's holding, who's selling, and some of the implications on Blast as well. The Lux infiltration game sells out, raising 500 ETH in 5 minutes. That's pretty good. They sold out at 0.05. It was a 10,000 supply. Pretty fun there. I want to dive into that in a second. Hopefully Legendary knows a bit more than that than I do, giving him a heads up to research it now if he doesn't. And finally, largest Blur farmer Hanway takes 10% of the NFT loan market on Blur. This was some really awesome primary research from NFT Stats, explaining Hanway's position, what a huge force he's become in the NFT loan market. We're going to get into that in a second too. Looking at the floor prices, we have CryptoPunks at 56 ETH, Bored Apes at 29.5, up 3%, Mutants up 7% at 5.6, DeGods up 6 at 3.3, Captains at 4.2, down 3%, but everything else is up. Azuki up 8% at 6.1, Penguins up 3 at 6.1, Moonbirds at 2, Nouns at 40 ETH. We had a couple of big sales. CryptoPunk Wild here selling for 67 ETH. That's $140,000. And an Azuki Lightning. I haven't seen an Azuki high sale for a while. That was at 45 ETH. That's $95,000. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Any numbers standing out to you off the bat?
Definitely like the Azuki Lightning sale. As you said, it's very, very nice, as obviously a biased holder given my PFP, to see Azuki sales very, very close to 6 figures.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, and I haven't seen an Azuki sale that high in quite some time, so that's good to see for the Azuki community. One reflection for me is that all the prices seem to be up. Like, the major NFT collections are up again. I think one of the reasons for that is that the concerns of the end of season 2 have basically been dealt with. The market has decided there's no reason to be concerned. And if you look at the NFT loan market, a lot of the loans are kind of clearing themselves up now. In fact, remember how we spoke about yesterday or the day before, how in that moment, loads and loads of loans went to like 100% APY, 60% APY, 50% loan to value. It became like a really risky period to be a borrower because all of your loans got whacked up really high. I'm just looking at the Bored Ape loan chart right now. And basically, because of how successful the season 2 airdrop was, there's so many loans that people, because they're farming the airdrop, have offered at 0%. And so so many of them have been refinanced already, so that it takes a lot of pressure off the loan market. Well, at least immediately, it does. So now, instead of there being like 50 loans that were between 50 and 150% APY, there's about 50 at 0%. And yeah, there's just like a scattering of other loans, which are still quite high, but could probably be refinanced if the borrowers actually just checked that there's better offers available. Any reflections on that, Legendary, before we hit the headlines?
Definitely like that we've been getting more and more into the loan markets over the last couple of days and weeks. And again, as you said yesterday, I think that action is a good confirmation that the lending market is willing to accept the current floor prices as correct, as accurate, and doesn't want to correct them lower by having loans that nobody wants to take or to refinance.
Absolutely. Always like to check the loan market for just a little bit of direction. I don't know if it's always the case that it provides direction, but I think it is helpful to be aware of what's going on there. Want to get into the first headline. Blur obviously up 30% to 0.6 cent, 0.6. We had the CBB account, which is one of the biggest Blur farmers, saying that, asking the question, should we retweet every single tweet during the last 9 months claiming that CBB has trapped farming Blur at a loss? With the increase in price, they've stated that it was an 8-digit profit airdrop. So that is a large amount. And it's just interesting. It's interesting that it's such a large amount. It's interesting that so many people faded that one. It's interesting that so many people are fade. I mean, I know it's attracted a lot of capital, but Blast has at least attracted a lot of criticism as well. And there's certainly a lot of people saying that it's stupid. And I guess what CBB is saying is that what you called stupid, we call 8-digit profit. So any thoughts on that, Legendary? Then want to get into this interesting point by Loopify and discuss a little bit more on season 3.
Let's get Loopify's point. Nothing of value to add on CBB's comment, really.
Okay, so Loopify said that Blur season 1 made people money no one expected, and I think that is fair. People, they traded a little bit, they didn't know it was going to be that big. Blur season 2 was so overcrowded and long that everyone thought the farmers would lose money, and I think that's also true because it just dragged on and on and on, and people could see these farmers like taking hold of assets and having to sell them at small losses. And so I think people thought that this would be a unprofitable strategy because they saw those losses racking up. And I think combined with that, people thought that with the declining price of the token, then that's going to seriously hit your profits. Because yes, if Blur had stayed at 0.16 or whatever its low was, then I don't know if these people would be as much up as they are now. But now that the token's at 0.6, which is a 4x on the lows, even when it had recovered to 0.3, that wasn't, it's still a 2x, which is significant. Suddenly it becomes a moneymaker, which people couldn't foresee at the time because all they could see was a down only token, in addition to the fact that the season was going on for so long. And then he said, Blur season 3 just started, and there is another wave of FOMO after the Binance listing. Oh, of course, that was the other big bit of news, that there was a Binance listing in the last 24 hours. Yeah, he just said, wonder what happens now. More importantly, Pac-Man is an incentive genius. I guess the question to you, Legendary, is, season 1 was people making money no one expected. Season 2 was overcrowded, as in lots of people were doing it, but then it became so long that maybe people started giving up and everyone thought farmers lost money. Where are we at on season 3? Like, do you think it's become a completely overcrowded trade for both Blur, which is the one side of things, but then also on Blast on the other side of things? Is it overcrowded? Is it not overcrowded? What do you think?
I think it's the very same as with so many airdrops that people have such a short attention span. As you said, season 2 did run for a pretty long time. People who might have been very excited about it at the start of the season have lost interest throughout the season 2 over the months. I think it's going to be similar with season 3. Everyone talks about it now. People are putting the money into Blast. We are up to 370 mil in TVL by now. And as we said yesterday, especially with regards to Blast, half the rewards are for putting money into that multi-sig, depositing into that not yet existing layer 2 solution, and half of the money will be given, or half of the rewards will be given to devs for bridging and building the protocols on Blast. And as we know, those rewards are often passed on to the users of those protocols. So there will be more to do on Blast as a network once it is at least live in testnet. And this is, again, when you will have strategies where you can just be more competitive than others than just putting in money, because like right now, the only thing you can realistically do is put in money into Blast and play a whale scam and go for the spins. But then once there will be more things to do, strategies will evolve, and you will be able to have alpha and outperform others. And there's definitely money to be made in there. Very similarly, as we talked about it yesterday, that one farmer who started with between 2 and 3 ETH in season 2 on Blur and received an airdrop of it was either 84, 86K. So even if it's a crowded market, you can definitely find a way to be smarter than others.
Yeah, I think that's true. I just wanted to bring up this tweet from Kix, which I found funny, and I think represents my take on it. And I think I just want to reiterate. I know we say this at the beginning and we say it over and over, but we have to talk about the positions like we're in. We're obviously in this position. It's a relevant thing. It's highly newsworthy. And yeah, we are obviously, we've taken a position in this. But Kick said this thing, kind of imitating the fudders of this opportunity, because my position is that, yeah, okay, cool, it's overcrowded, whatever. There's a lot of people bridging over. And actually, one of the points that Laura Shin pointed out just earlier today is that now the Blast TVL is up at $382 million. So Blast now ranks the 5th among L2s on Ethereum, only behind Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and ZK Sync. Like, that is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane that they've become the 5th largest L2 without even being an L2 yet, and that the 4 ahead of them are some of the most prominent L2s that exist. Like, there aren't any. I mean, they've probably overtaken a whole bunch of other ones that are quite good as well. But, you know, the only 4 ahead are the biggest ones around. So that's absolutely insane. So in terms of thinking, like, is this overcrowded? I can see why people would think that. But my personal perspective is I don't know how people can fade this. And I think Kix kind of articulated it quite nicely, where he said Blast L2, you know, one of the things it says is that you can stake and earn yield and rewards, but the critics will say, but I can't withdraw. And so in response to that, you would say, okay, ETH stakers waited 2 years for the merge to withdraw. But okay, if you don't want to be locked up, just stake and farm with Blur, no lock. And then the criticism of that would be, but I don't want to risk Blur going down. And the way you'd respond to that is to say, okay, you can farm rewards with NFT activity with no risk. And then the people will say, no, I don't like NFTs. Because I think a lot of the criticism have come from other L2 big brain, like smart developers as such, just like, no, we don't like NFTs, and want to criticize it from that perspective, or big crypto people. And then ultimately all you can say is like, okay, then don't participate. He says, no, I need to tell everyone how risky this play is, despite everyone being in crypto for risk reward opportunities. And I think that's the bit that cracks me up a little bit, because you have all of these big accounts who are clearly really smart people pointing out, you know, legitimate risks. And we have done the same thing yesterday. You did a great job talking about some of the risks, but it's like, sometimes I think people forget where they are. Like, where do you think we are? We're in crypto. Like, we're here to take risks. And yes, everyone needs to determine the amount of risk that they want to take. And on some level, fine, you can point it out. But at the same time, I think it moves into a realm where you're actually just protecting your own situation or your own bags in some way by pointing out the risk to such a point where, you're not actually, I don't know, you're becoming a bit blind to the opportunity, especially in an industry that is built on people taking risks. Ledry, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
I think that's a very fair take. And if we speak about risks, I reposted a long thread by Token Professor yesterday who got into some of the risks, and he pointed out one interesting thing that is very obvious, but I didn't see many people talk about it, which is the risk of opportunity cost, because this really aligns with what Kix has been saying. Yes, everything is risky, but we are here for risk reward opportunities. So the question should really be, if you lock up your ETH in Blast, what's your expectation? Do you think you will get 30, 40%, whatever the return on that might be? And the question is, do you think you can outperform that over the next couple of months or not? Or do you even want to do that? Because, as we said, there's so many things to do, and you might just not have the bandwidth and time to put all of your ETH to work, and you just have a bunch of ETH laying around. You're like, yeah, instead of, just having it laying around, I think it is a good way or a good approach to put it in Blast. Or for some, that might be spinning up a validator and going for eigenlayer for the eigenlayer points, because thinking that that might be a very good airdrop. So that opportunity cost risk is one that I would really, really consider. And the rest that we spoke about, yes, Slido centralization, smart contract risks, it is only a multi-sig, it is a massive honeypot. People will try to social engineer to get 3 out of those 5 signatures, to get access to those 300, now 80 mil. But it is definitely a true aspect that Kix is pointing out. If you only focus on the risk, you might miss out the potential of the opportunity.
I've got a more personal question now, kind of a reflection on where we were in 2021 versus now. I'm just noticing the way that I'm looking at the market now, and it's just so much more heavily focused on airdrops than it was in 2021. In 2021, I came in fresh at the top of the year, bought some, what was the first stuff? Some Nifty Gateway stuff, which ripped, bought Punk's Comics, which ripped, Meta Heroes ripped, and kind of got into the ecosystem purely via NFTs. And then, but all the airdrop stuff just wasn't on my radar. I kind of learned about it as the year went on. Like, oh, okay, well, the more you participate, it seems to be the case that you can get exposure to all of these things. And then I kind of decided, well, if I'm going to be in this space full time, and I had quit my job after like 4 months of participating in the NFT market, I was like, well, I'm not going to miss out. Like, I'm not going to miss out on all this stuff if I'm going to be here all the time. Like, why should I miss out? I should be getting as much as all these other people, just for participating. And I guess my question to you is, when you look back, do you think are you looking at the market differently now and seeing all these airdrop opportunities more because there are more opportunities, or were we just not aware of them back then and now we're just like loads wiser to those opportunities?
I am very certain that there's so many more airdrop opportunities now
So there
than back
literally
in
are more in number.
2021 for 3 reasons. So first of all, you had in the last cycle, you had DeFi protocols doing airdrops mostly, right? And that was like, well, ENS was also a big one. You had some NFT marketplaces, but that was like very, very easy to track. And obviously, new DeFi protocols, new marketplaces, etc., will follow that same playbook. So you have this base level. Then you have that increased competition and scalability of ETH with multiple layer 2 solutions who all try to attract users, and who many of them follow the same playbook of teasing an airdrop that might come to people testing that early, but that also attracts new protocols building on these new layer 2s who will also come up with an airdrop themselves. And then the third layer, in my opinion, is the gaming meta that we're currently seeing, where so many projects are coming out with the token, or already have done a token airdrop, like ZTX did. And that's another basically angle where airdrops are coming from. And I think all of them are happening in a very, very tight time frame, for the reason that we've been in a very long bear market. Many projects, struggled to survive, to keep their burn rate low and to keep the runway as long as they could. And now they see that positive shift in sentiment and are like, yeah, we're going to accelerate our plans to introduce a token. We've seen it with, the Kungs Cups ecosystem, where Yoga Pets will get their own Prana token. Kungs posted in Discord. We are moving, we're accelerating those plans with the token airdrop with the TGE. And that's certainly not the only project who's now looking at an accelerated timeline to distribute your token, because, and that's the last thought on that, you want to find that middle ground. You don't want to be the first one to release a token, especially not in Web3 gaming, because if that happens, and you don't have a product ready, you run at the risk that people sell your token and just go into the next NFT project that has a token coming. But you also don't want to be the last at the end of the cycle and hype. So you want to be in that middle. And now that we've seen token launches in all those different verticals, projects, people, games, etc., will probably think we are getting closer to that middle and have an additional reason to want to launch the token even faster. So definitely more airdrops to look out for in this cycle than in the last.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because there was one part of me that just thought maybe we're wiser now. But actually, before 2021, there were no proper, maybe there were some small collector bases of NFTs, but there were no big bands of NFT communities, right? And now all NFT projects and communities have the potential to drop tokens as part of airdrops, and that's just a whole new sector, a whole new potential group of token holders that did not exist before. So therefore, practically, it must be the case that there are more chances now because that NFT ecosystem just didn't exist before. And maybe even there's more opportunities because other chains are becoming more developed and mature. So at one point in time, yeah, maybe the ETH DeFi ecosystems did the biggest airdrops because that's where all the TVL was. But in this round now, in this round of a more bullish market, Solana's airdrops could also be hyper profitable if you've done loads of volume on Jupiter, which is one of their major exchanges, or the Tensor NFT marketplace that's also in their round doing their rounds of airdrops for the amount of volume that you've been pushing through there. So there's more chains, there's more different types of marketplaces, there's more communities. So yeah, that was just a personal question, because I think that kind of explains maybe the small amount of stress that you can feel when you think, right, there are so many things going on at the moment, and it's because there literally is. But yeah, you've got to try to make sense of it. What's one of your thoughts, Legendary, before we move on to the next headline, put this kind of airdrop chat just to the side, a final reflection on airdrops? What can people do to approach it in a wise way? Also taking into account that we have run an airdrop educational set of tutorials for almost 2 years. What are your thoughts?
Couple of points. First of all, be aware that farming airdrops or hunting airdrops is not a free thing to do. You need to have transactions, you need to have volume, and even if you're on a layer 2 solution, you will incur gas costs. So it is not a free thing to do. Second of all, if that's truly an endeavor that you want to follow, it is a long-term commitment. It's not, I'm going to do a couple of transactions today on zkSync and hope that 1 year down the line, when zkSync might have the token, that I will get handsomely rewarded. Because what protocols like to see, and what we've seen, especially with the Arbitrum airdrop, is repeat activity. They checked if you had a transaction over 6, over 9 different months, and that got you significant extra rewards. So rather than trying again to capture all the airdrops in this space, which is absolutely not possible, try to focus on a couple that you either have high conviction in, and try to be active in, I don't know, if you pick out zkSync, Scroll, Starknet, pick out 2-3 layer 2 solutions, and just try to focus on those and try to use new protocols on those who could also do an airdrop, but don't spread yourself too thin by trying to capture all of the Solana airdrops, try to capture all of the gaming airdrops and tokens that might be upcoming, and also try to farm the entire L2 ecosystem, because that's not possible unless you want to make that your full-time job. And if you want to do that and you want to spend 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week farming airdrops and have the capital to do that, then that's definitely going to be a lucrative thing to do, but then it becomes your main gig.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Funky, your hand is just raised, and I've got a final point to conclude the airdrop chat. Then we're going to get into the LooksRare news, as well as some interesting news from the loan market. Funky.
GM, thanks, guys. I just real quick question for Legendary, just while he's laying out some strategy. Do you often do these kinds of things? Like, let's say you hunker down on one or two protocols that do you do it with multiple wallets? Do you just stick to one or two wallets? Because I have a friend who does a lot of these airdrops, and she actually did 35 wallets across like stuff like Arbitrum. And it does get to become like a full-time job. So I just wanted to kind of pick your brain about that real quick.
Very good question. So what protocols want is obviously organic activity. What they don't want is airdrop hunters, airdrop farmers who come with 100 wallets to farm the shit out of their token. But obviously what's going on is the airdrop, the protocols are doing their best to protect themselves against Sybils, against people who try to farm with multiple wallets and detect them. And on the other hand, airdrop farmers try to get smarter and smarter to find ways to use multiple wallets without being detected as one single person who is using 50 wallets. So if you farm with multiple wallets, but then they are connected between one another by just sending, your farm wallet 1, send funds to wallet 2, farm wallet 2, and send funds to wallet 3, and so on, you're not going to get any airdrop, because it's the easiest way to find out. People go for like more sophisticated setups where they have multiple sub-accounts on a centralized exchange, fund each wallet individually, consolidate funds in a centralized exchange wallet that's different for every airdrop wallet that they farmed. But then again, you also have protocols who start looking at what are some of the other things that are happening in the wallet. Is that wallet, does the wallet have an ENS? Is that wallet connected to an X account via Vulcan or Collabland or other wallet authentication tools? Are they collecting NFTs? So the more people are trying to obviously game those airdrops by farming it with hundreds and hundreds of wallets, the more protocols will find ways to protect themselves, and this is going to be like an eternal battle. So yes, obviously you can farm it with multiple wallets, but if you do that, just be aware of the things you need to do to make those wallets look as organic as possible and be independent from one another when it comes to funding or consolidating those. Again, if it's not your full-time gig, I'd rather focus on the 2-3 main wallets that you use. And I think with that low amount of wallets, it's also not an issue if they have transactions that go between them. At least it hasn't been the case for me. And not to try to have a cluster of 50 wallets, because in the worst case, that will get you ineligible for the airdrop. And one final note on that, because I like how Hop, the bridge, did it back then when they had an airdrop. They actually had a very cool program. They said, look, if you're a Sybil, if you farmed with a cluster of 100 wallets, for example, you can tell us that. They had a program where it said you can, admit to that farming of yours, and you will just get, I don't know, I think it was 25% instead of like the full 100% that you would have gotten. But also be aware that if we flag you as a Sybil, you will get 0 tokens, and then they incentivize their community to figure out on the blockchain which wallets were actually Sybil farmers. And if someone had proof that this cluster of wallets was a Sybil, then they would have received 50% of the airdrop that the Sybil would have received if they remained undetected. So there's definitely a lot of game theory and incentivizing going on for protocols to protect themselves against airdrop farmers.
Awesome answer. I think that thoroughly addresses any concerns people may have. And just as a final point, like I do think that there are times where it's completely legitimate to have more than one wallet, right? Because we all have multiple wallets doing various things. Some might be in a personal capacity, some might be in different business capacities. So there are very much legitimate reasons to be working on multiple wallets, and it's not it's not obviously the case that just because you have 2 or 3, that will mean that you get flagged. But as Legendary said, if you're literally just sending funds and cycling them around and doing the exact same transaction, that's probably going to get flagged. So definitely be aware of that. Did I have a final point to make on it? I don't think so. So that should be a super interesting and helpful discussion on airdrops. We want to put a bow on that now and get into the headline about LooksRare, who sold out 10,000 NFTs in 5 minutes at 0.05. It sounds like a pretty degen play. Legendary, do you want to take this piece of news?
Absolutely. LooksRare has tried to gamify their NFT marketplace with spins, with little mini games, and Infiltration is kind of taking that to the next step. And it's also their attempt at making their token deflationary with a concept that honestly to me is strikingly similar to what Nate Alex did back in the day with the Chain Faces Arena, which is you have the agents. Those are the NFTs that sold out. There's 10K agents. As you said, they sold out for 0.05 ETH, and they play a survival game that works as follows. Every 35 Ethereum blocks, that's every 7 minutes, 0.3% of all active agents are marked as wounded. You have 48 rounds time to heal your agent. That obviously is the deflationary component where LooksRare token is going to be used to heal the agent. And this goes on and on and on with the likelihood of your healing attempt to fail increasing with each round. And that goes on until you reach the end game phase where only 50 active agents are left and alive. And in that phase, 1 agent dies every round. So every 35 Ethereum blocks, every 7 minutes. And obviously, you can still escape at any point. And if you escape, you will take the pro rata allocation of the price pool that's in both LooksRare and ETH tokens home. And then the last agent who survives not only takes that secondary prize, which all of the agents in the top 50 do, but also wins the main prize. So that's a concept that, again, is very similar to the Chain Faces Arena by Nate Alex that did exactly follow exactly that same logic.
Very interesting. I mean, just at a headline level, it's pretty cool that there's this appetite to play. Like, I think that's my first thing. I don't know how much you want to dive into the specific mechanics. I think you did a good job of summarizing some of those. And if people want to find out more, they can obviously dive into that and try to figure out strategy if they do want to play themselves. But at a minimum, it's just signaling to me that there's appetite to play again in crypto. Like a 0.05 mint and selling out 10,000 is nothing to, that's, well, the other way around. It's something very significant, I think, in this market. 500 ETH in 5 minutes. There's a 425 ETH prize pool. So that's $870,000 of loot, which awaits the winners of various sorts. So that just seems very significant to me. Any other reflections on it, Legendary?
Apart from the fact that it's a concept that we've seen before, actually, I really like what LooksRare is trying to do in terms of positioning themselves in a more unique way by focusing on those gamified gambling mechanisms and kind of try to find a new spot for themselves in that very competitive field of NFT marketplaces, where they are kind of between, marketplace, but also a bit of gamble-fi platform. So I do appreciate, the creativity of the team behind that.
Yeah. So there's clearly some things going on behind the scenes here. So I'll just point out a couple of those things. I think, as you said, they're trying to figure out how to become relevant as a marketplace, and that's a big challenge. You've obviously got Blur, who are crushing it, figuring out ways to incentivize people to stay there. OpenSea forever seems to be in this far away second place. People can't quite abandon it because it is useful for certain things, but because they don't incentivize people, people have often turned away. Realistically, the LooksRare marketplace as a marketplace has not had much traction. So yeah, it's interesting that they're taking this gaming route, and also that they're kind of focusing on the token dynamics, trying to tap into that mindset of the traditional NFT or crypto trader. A couple of points to make is that Looks is now deflationary, as you said. Looks will be deflationary with the supply being reduced via various mechanisms on a consistent basis. 25%, there'll be a burn of 25% of all looks used for healing in infiltration, which will be burned. So obviously you need looks, the looks token, in order to heal your character. And then 25% of those which you use, the team will simply burn. And then they add not only that, but 50% of the overall fee will be used to buy back looks from the market. So that's actually a huge supply crunch of looks in some respect, because 25% is going to be burned, and then 50% of it is going to be used to buy back looks. Hang on, does that make any sense? If they're receiving looks, how can they buy looks with looks? Am I missing something there? Can you see? You can see this tweet that I'm showing you.
Yeah, I can see it.
So it says not only that,
but I think they also have a fee from. I think they also said a 10% royalty fee for the Infiltrator collection on OpenSea.
Only on OpenSea.
And they said that they will use that royalty to buy back looks as well. And I would assume that it applies for fees that they make in ETH that they use to buy back looks tokens.
Okay, well that makes sense, but that's not clear in the tweet, because above they're talking about the looks that they'll receive via the game, and then the next fee is talking about the fee that they would receive just from OpenSea trading, which is not, and they've also sent their fees on their own platform to 0 on it, so that could not be a high amount potentially. But basically their objective, which they say in the final sentence, is we look forward to sending the looks supply to 0. Which is just a hilarious thing to say out loud. I guess, yeah, they're trying to say we're going to burn this as much as we can. We're going to buy it back, then we're going to burn it, and we're trying to reduce the supply as much, and hopefully the price goes up. They're trying. They're doing their very best. And as a final point, as you just mentioned, the other thing going on is they've said that there will be a 10% royalty added to the Infiltration collection on OpenSea. And yeah, there you go. Any funds generated will be used to buy looks from the market, and it will be added to the prize pool. Okay, does that make sense? I'm just checking if this stuff makes sense. Sometimes they just say random things. Any funds generated will be used to buy looks, and maybe those looks will be added to the prize pool, potentially. Okay. Well, so it seems like they're trying to incentivize as much as possible, really ramp up the prize pool, as well as decrease the supply of looks as fast as possible. Any concluding thoughts, Legendary, on LooksRare's approach to be relevant in the NFT marketplace game?
Let's see if it works out. Let's see if that sending the LooksRare supply to 0 is what will drive the token price and also drive volume on the platform or not.
Absolutely. Let's see. It's obviously a more novel approach. Blur is still ultimately crushing it in terms of volume and activity. OpenSea is still a very clear second leader. So let's see how that goes for them. Let's get into the Web3 roundup and Creator Corner roundup to get you up to speed with what else has been going on in the space in the last 24 hours. Then we'll touch on the final headline in just a moment. So we have, number one, as always, this is in the snapshot, which is pinned up top. We have Mockaverse announcing that 50,000 Mocha IDs have been minted. That's pretty cool. That's a really high number for the community. And I kind of trust the number a little bit more. Maybe because it's all like linked to Twitters and Discords, and I don't know how easy that would be to bot. Maybe it is possible. But yeah, very high number for them. Number two, fifth Chimpvolution Chimpers NFT auction concludes at 0.75 ETH. The reason why that's really cool is because they're basically being able to sell new NFTs to their community without diluting the supply. So people will sacrifice one of their current chimpers in order to get these new evolved chimpers. So it's turning into quite a nice little revenue stream from these daily auctions that are going on at the moment. That's something projects could take a look into. Next, Flooring Protocol will add fees for vault redemptions, which will be sent to you token holders. Always trying to see how to incentivize token holders there at Flooring Protocol. Finally, this was cool to see. Cool Cats appear in the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. That was a pretty fun image coming across our screens yesterday. And the final piece of news is that OSF is fighting in the Crypto Fight Week in Dubai. One of the most diverse creators out there doing NFTs, trading, boxing, good friend of mine as well. So wishing him the best. Final conclusion on the news for me is that I was looking around, as I always do every single morning, for an hour or two, trying to finalize the snapshot. And again, I'm trying to source as many signs as I can to inform you of how I feel the market is going. And I couldn't find more news today. And I'm not saying that's because there is literally less news. I think that there could be more interesting things that could have made the snapshot today. But my point is that I couldn't find it because my usual sources are too excited right now. They're too excited about talking about prices, talking about coins going up. And so I found it much harder to source different bits of news from my usual sources. And I think that could be, well, it could be a sign of just excitement, could be a sign of something. I think it's a sign of something. That's what I'm saying. Just telling you my experience from this morning doing the snapshot. So Legendary, that is the information. That is the news from the Creator Corner and the Web3 Roundup. Shall we touch on the final headline of the day?
Absolutely. Happy for you to set it up, and I will change the title.
Awesome. So this was the news that Hanway, who is the biggest Blur farmer, received more than 2 million in the season 2 airdrop, and he actually tweeted out that he sold all of it. I think this morning he sold all of his Blur about 3 hours ago. He said it could of course go higher, but he's happy to take profits there. So that's a huge win for them. NFT Stats, friend of the show, did this really cool primary research where he explained that after receiving more than 2 million in an airdrop, yesterday alone, he gave more than 300 loans on Blend, the most he's ever given, and he basically represented more than 10% of the whole NFT lending market on Blend. And he's already earned more than 3.5 times as many points as the second biggest farmer. So that's just really, really colossal numbers. Yeah, just absolutely colossal numbers. Legendary, do you see any? What do you think about that? Basically, what are your thoughts?
It's a very fascinating position to be in. If you're 10% of the lending market, even arguing that the lending market is small compared to other financial market, it's a very, very intriguing, or not intriguing, a fascinating position, as I said, to be in, because you definitely can influence the market. As we've spoken about lending over the last couple of shows, the health of the lending market is an indicator of how much the market is willing to accept the current floor prices. So you not only influence the lending market, you influence the whole NFT market, the whole prices. And I would also argue that is actually more than that 10%, because many people would just look, what is the biggest lender out there in the market doing, assuming they certainly know what they are doing. So I would just copy their strategy. So probably by proxy, they are carrying more than 10% of the overall market. And that makes it even more interesting to observe just from a financial behavioral perspective.
Yeah, super interesting. It does make you makes you start to think. I assume people will already have been watching the wallet just because it's so significant, but then when it becomes so big, it kind of starts to create the existential risk that sometimes people talk about with banks. When banks become too big to fail, I wonder whether there are certain lending entities that can become too big to fail, because if Hanway goes down, then everything would be taken down with him. I'd need to do more research into the numbers to consider whether that would actually be the case. But I think when people have such disproportionate market share, I think there is that potential. A final interesting point, we kind of touched on it earlier, But as season 3 ended, again, this is coming from NFT Stats, providing some awesome primary research. It showed how many loans went into that plus 75%, plus 100% APY region. And it basically went, I think the average APY per refinance loan went to over 75 and 100%. And usually it's under 25. So huge increase in those days. But as I said earlier, and as I explained, looking at the market now, it's completely settled down. Lenders have brought back their liquidity to offer loans at much better rates, often at 0 rates because they're farming the blur points. So that's something to be aware of. And I think that is in no small part a reason for the market recovering quite nicely in the last couple of days. We are up because the fear of the prices going down with that lending market liquidity disappearing is kind of gone, and everyone's quite happy, I think, to play season 3 of Blend. So the show goes on. The show goes on, ladies and gentlemen. We are very grateful to it. The show goes on next week, though, not actually today. This show specifically has to close, but zooming out, the show goes on. So today we close the show. We bring the show back next week because the show goes on. Have a wonderful weekend. We have run out of time for today's show. We do this every single day, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. GMT, Monday to Friday. We're grateful that you're here with us. Hope you've had a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrate it on the stateside. Take care, enjoy the time with your family, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.